So recently, I've been reading The Garden of the Soul by Carrie Wyatt Kent, and it's all about how the physical garden is a parallel to our spiritual life with the Lord, and how when we cultivate a physical garden, it is much like cultivating a spiritual life and the parallels within it. And there's one passage specifically where she's talking about there was a cherry tree in her backyard of the house that they first moved into, and for the first few years, they ignored the cherry tree and they didn't harvest the cherries and they never pruned the tree. And so it produced a sparse crop. And that means that it was scattered. The cherries were scattered. The birds came after the cherries all the time and gobbled them up. And it was messy. But then when they looked into it and wanted to cultivate the cherry tree some more, they learned that the first thing that you should do once a tree bears fruit is prune it. And how that is such a parallel in our spiritual life of how many times do we finally produce some fruit with the Lord, and I do believe he lets us enjoy it, but then oftentimes we experience the pruning shortly after, and it can be discouraging because pruning is hard, it's painful, it's pruning off branches and tearing things off, but it is the pruning that allows for even more growth in the next season. And she describes how they pruned the cherry tree and then they placed a net over it to protect it from the birds, and how this net provides protection, and therefore the birds were not allowed to get to it. And how often too does the Lord place a net around us that actually is for our protection, that it might feel restraining, but it is for our good. And that next season, the cherries were produced in abundance and they grew and grew, and they were able to make cherry pie and all the different things. And so, with this being an encouragement to you, that whether you are in a season of pruning and being protected, that the Lord is going to produce so much fruit within you.